And some people have even said that it's actually Elvis who didn't die at all, and he's actually Bob. But certainly, in my opinion, with the analysis that we're going to be doing, I mean, Bob has said himself that he's not Elvis Presley.
For decades, people have wondered if Elvis Presley really died in 1977. Now, a shocking DNA claim is bringing that mystery back. Pastor Bob Joyce has been linked to Elvis because of his face, voice, and strange similarities. But this time, the claim goes even further. Supporters say a DNA test may have revealed a link between the pastor and the king of rock and roll. But is the DNA claim real? And could Bob Joyce truly be Elvis living a secret life? Join us as we reveal the details. DNA test reveals Pastor Bob Joyce is Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was one of the biggest stars the world had ever seen. His music made him famous across the globe. His face was known everywhere. Millions of people watched him sing, dance, and perform on stage. But in 1977, everything appeared to come to an end. Elvis was reported dead at his home, Graceland, on August 16, 1977. He was only 42 years old. His death shocked the world. Fans cried. Newspapers filled their pages with stories about the death of the king of rock and roll. His family mourned him, and his name became part of music history. Yet, almost 5 decades later, a strange theory continues to attract attention. The theory says Elvis did not really die. Instead, he may have walked away from his old life and started again under another name. That name, according to the claim, is Pastor Bob Joyce. Bob Joyce is a Christian preacher from Arkansas. He became known for preaching, singing gospel songs, and speaking to large groups of believers. Some people who heard him noticed something strange. They believed his voice sounded very much like Elvis. Others said his face, smile, movements, and way of speaking also looked familiar. This led to one of the most unusual questions in entertainment history. Could Pastor Bob Joyce actually be Elvis Presley? The idea becomes even more interesting when Elvis's final years are considered. Elvis was extremely famous, but fame had brought him serious problems. His health was getting worse. He had problems connected to prescription pills. His weight had changed. He was often tired, and the pressure of being Elvis Presley followed him everywhere. He could not easily walk outside without people noticing him. Photographers watched him. Fans followed him. Newspapers reported on almost everything he did. His private life was no longer truly private. For a man who had become famous at such a young age, this pressure may have been difficult to handle. Elvis was also deeply interested in religion. Gospel music was an important part of his life. He grew up around Christian music and continued singing gospel songs even after becoming a rock star. He also read religious books and spent time thinking about God, life, death, and his purpose. This part of his life is important to the theory because it gives people a possible reason for why he would want to leave his old life behind. The theory suggests that Elvis may have wanted a completely different life. Instead of being surrounded by cameras, money, concerts, and fame, he could live quietly and serve God. But questions about his death have also helped keep the story alive. Some people have questioned parts of the official account of what happened at Graceland. They have pointed to the sealed autopsy records and claims about differences in witness statements. Some have also questioned the closed casket at his funeral. There were people who said the body did not look exactly like Elvis. They noticed things about the face and hands that made them uncomfortable. However, such observations are not proof that the body was not Elvis. Grief can affect the way people remember a person, and the appearance of a body can also change after death. Still, these questions became part of the larger mystery. The story became even stronger for believers when Bob Joyce appeared to have similarities to Elvis. His voice became one of the biggest points of discussion. When Joyce sings gospel songs, some listeners say they hear the same deep sound and the same way of stretching certain words. They also point to the way he speaks. His pauses, his tone, and his southern style have been compared with Elvis's voice. There are also claims that both men were left-handed and shared the same blood type. These details have been used to make the theory sound stronger. The biggest claim involves DNA. Supporters of the theory say that DNA testing showed a match between Elvis Presley and Bob Joyce. If such a test were real, properly done, and independently confirmed, it would be extremely important. DNA is one of the strongest ways to identify a person. But there is a major problem. No clear, trusted DNA report has been publicly presented to prove that Bob Joyce is Elvis Presley. Without a real report, a named laboratory, proper samples, and independent experts confirming the result, the claim remains unproven. The mystery, therefore, continues. On one side are people who see the voice, face, movements, religious background, and alleged DNA evidence as pieces of one huge puzzle. On the other side are people who say similarities between two people are not enough to prove they are the same person. The story remains powerful because Elvis was not an ordinary celebrity. He was a worldwide icon. If these similarities are real, what other clues could reveal the truth? Keep watching for more details. The life of Bob Joyce and the search for the truth. Pastor Bob Joyce became known for his Christian ministry in Arkansas. He preached about God, faith, forgiveness, salvation, and changing one's life. He also sang gospel music during his services. For people who believe the Elvis theory, this new life seems almost too perfect. Elvis had already shown a strong love for gospel music. He had recorded religious songs and often spoke about faith. Supporters, therefore, believe becoming a preacher would have been a natural choice for a man who wanted to escape the pressure of fame. They also point to the way Joyce performs. When he becomes excited during a sermon, some people say his movements remind them of Elvis on stage. His hands move in familiar ways. His face changes in familiar ways. His voice sometimes becomes stronger and deeper. When he sings, the connection becomes even more noticeable to people who already believe the theory. Some supporters also claim that Joyce knows details about Elvis's life that he should not know. They point to comments about fame, loneliness, pressure, and the struggle to find meaning. These subjects were certainly part of Elvis's public story, but discussing them does not prove that someone personally lived through them. A preacher could talk about these subjects because they are common human problems. The theory also raises questions about timing. Elvis was reported dead in 1977, while Bob Joyce became known as a preacher around the same general period. Supporters see this as a major clue. They ask how a new preacher could appear so soon after the death of one of the world's most famous singers. But timing alone cannot prove that two people are the same. Many people begin new careers after major changes in their lives. The theory becomes even bigger when the idea of a planned escape is considered. If Elvis really wanted to disappear, he would have needed help. He would have needed a new name, documents, money, a new home, and people willing to keep his secret. He would also have needed to cut contact with almost everyone who knew him. That would include friends, workers, musicians, family members, and people from his old life. This would have been extremely difficult. Elvis was one of the most watched people in the world. Keeping such a secret for nearly 50 years would require an enormous amount of control and silence. The theory also raises painful questions about his family. Elvis had a daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. She grew up believing that her father had died. If Elvis had secretly survived, she would have spent her life without knowing the truth, or she would have had to keep the secret herself. His former wife, Priscilla Presley, would also have faced an impossible situation. Either she knew about the plan, or she did not. There is no solid evidence showing that she secretly helped Elvis disappear. Another part of the theory involves money. Claims have been made about large cash withdrawals before Elvis's death. Supporters believe the money could have helped him start a new life. But money being withdrawn does not prove what happened to it. There would need to be clear financial records showing where the money went and how it was connected to Bob Joyce. Without that proof, the claim remains speculation. The same problem applies to stories about former Graceland workers and bodyguards. Some stories claim that Elvis acted strangely before his death. Others say he seemed calm, as if he knew he was about to leave. Such stories may sound important, but unnamed people and unverified statements cannot provide strong proof on their own. The strongest way to settle the mystery would be through reliable evidence. A properly documented DNA test could help. Official records could help. Medical evidence could help. Independent experts could compare fingerprints, dental records, photographs, voice recordings, and other identifying information. Elvis had fame, money, success, and millions of fans, but he also faced heavy pressure. The idea that he might have wanted to leave everything behind gives the story an emotional side, turning the mystery into a search for peace. In the end, Elvis Presley remains officially recognized as having died in 1977, while Bob Joyce remains a pastor. The claim that they are the same person has captured attention, but without independently confirmed proof, it remains an intriguing mystery rather than established history. If Bob Joyce was truly hiding a secret identity, what happened when he was finally forced to face the question everyone had been asking? Stay tuned for more. The question that put Bob Joyce under pressure. Bob Joyce spent many years as a Christian pastor, but his name later became linked to one of the biggest mysteries surrounding Elvis Presley. People noticed that Joyce looked and sounded like Elvis in certain ways. They compared photographs, videos, his voice, his smile, and the way he moved when he spoke or sang. Over time, the questions became harder to avoid. Was there really a connection between the pastor and the famous singer? The issue became even more serious when Joyce was reportedly asked the Elvis question during a television interview. At first, the interview was calm. Joyce was asked about his life and why people connected him to Elvis Presley. He discussed photographs, physical similarities, voice patterns, movements, and other details that supporters believed were important. Joyce appeared comfortable because he had faced questions about the subject before. He had spent years around the mystery and knew the points people often raised. But the mood changed as the interview continued. The host became more direct. Instead of asking only about pictures and similarities, the host began asking Joyce about his personal reasons for believing in the theory. This made the conversation deeper. The host wanted to know if Joyce truly believed there was a connection to Elvis or if the theory had become something more personal. Then came the question everyone was waiting for. The host reportedly asked Joyce directly, "Are you Elvis?" The question created a tense moment. Joyce did not immediately give a simple answer. He reportedly became quieter and took time to think. His body language also appeared different from earlier in the interview. He reportedly moved a hand toward his chest, which could have been a natural reaction to an emotional question. The room remained quiet, while the host waited. The host then pushed the question further. He asked Joyce to consider whether he truly believed he was Elvis, or whether he had been searching for something that would make his life feel important. This changed the whole meaning of the interview. It was no longer only about Elvis Presley. It was now about Joyce himself. Joyce reportedly admitted that the question was something he had asked himself. He explained that his interest in the mystery had grown from questions about Elvis's death. As he continued looking into the story, however, the subject became more personal. His search was no longer only about what happened to Elvis. It had also become part of his own search for meaning. This raised another question. Had Joyce spent so much time with the theory that it had become part of his identity? When someone spends years studying one idea, it can become difficult to accept that the idea may be wrong. Joyce reportedly became more thoughtful after admitting that he had questioned the idea himself. Instead of giving a strong answer, he appeared to consider what the question meant. Eventually, he reportedly said that he would need to examine strong proof carefully. That answer did not confirm that he was Elvis. It also did not completely close the door on the idea. For people who already believed the theory, his hesitation could seem suspicious. For others, it could simply show that Joyce understood how unusual the question was. Either way, the interview brought the mystery back into focus. It showed that the Elvis question had not disappeared. Joyce's reaction also raised a wider issue about belief. There is a difference between looking for facts and protecting a belief. A person can begin with a simple question and slowly become attached to one answer. Once that happens, accepting new information can become difficult. Joyce's reported admission therefore made the situation more interesting. Still, thinking about a possibility does not make it true. The strongest way to answer the question would be through clear, trusted evidence. Until that evidence appears, the mystery remains a claim, not a proven fact. If Bob Joyce's reaction only deepened the mystery, what evidence made people believe he could actually be connected to Elvis Presley? Let's delve deeper. The life of Bob Joyce and the questions around him. One reason people became interested in Bob Joyce was the strong similarity they believed they could see between him and Elvis Presley. Supporters compared photographs of the two men at different ages. They looked at the eyes, jaw, forehead, face shape, smile, and other features. Some believed the similarities were too strong to ignore. Others disagreed. They argued that many people can look alike without being related or secretly being the same person. They also pointed out that people who already believe a theory may notice matching features while ignoring the differences. Joyce's voice became another major part of the discussion. People compared recordings of him singing and speaking with recordings of Elvis. They listened to his tone, pitch, breathing, pauses, pronunciation, and the way he held certain words. Some listeners believed the voices sounded remarkably close. Others argued that someone who admired Elvis could copy his singing style after years of listening to him. There is no widely accepted scientific proof showing that Joyce and Elvis had the same voice, so the debate remains open. Joyce's body movements also attracted attention. Some people said the way he moved his hands, held a microphone, paused between words, and spoke to a crowd reminded them of Elvis. Supporters believed these movements looked natural, almost like old habits. Critics offered another explanation. They said a person who watched Elvis for years could copy his movements without realizing it. The mystery also grew because of Joyce's church, Household of Faith. The church reportedly started very small. Around 2010, only 7 or 8 people were said to meet in Joyce's living room. In 2014, the church moved to a rented business space on Salem Road in Benton, which could hold about 35 to 40 people. In 2019, it moved again to Salt Creek Road, where it could hold around 100 people and had about 20 parking spaces. A major change came in June 2024, when Joyce reportedly bought a new property on Samples Road. The property was described as about 9 acres and included a metal building that had first been built as a horse barn. The building was later changed into a church sanctuary that could hold more than 250 people, with parking for about 75 vehicles. The first service there was reportedly held on August 31st, 2025. The church's growth raised questions about its finances. Some people wondered how a pastor serving a relatively small congregation could maintain a large property and develop a bigger church facility. The church reportedly served retired, disabled, and working members without a large paid staff, gift shop, or national fundraising system. Joyce's estimated wealth ranged from $600,000 to $3 million, though unconfirmed. In April 2025, Gregory Pritchard reportedly visited with his family. He later described the visit in a YouTube interview, mentioning the quiet property, bad weather, power problems, and what he saw as a difference between the size of the congregation and the size of Joyce's property. Joyce's background has also caused confusion. His official website reportedly identifies him as Robert Wayne Joyce, born June 19, 1952, married in 1975, ordained in 1981, and educated at Dallas Baptist University. Yet some websites have listed different birth years and even described a Canadian musician with the same name. These conflicting records create questions, but they do not prove a hidden identity. In the end, Joyce's appearance, voice, church, finances, and biography have all become part of the mystery. None, by itself, proves that he is Elvis Presley. Until strong and independently verified evidence appears, the claim remains unproven. What do you think about the speculation surrounding Elvis Presley and Bob Joyce? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. If the mystery surrounding Bob Joyce, Elvis Presley, and the shocking questions about his true identity caught your attention, please like, subscribe, and watch the next video for more hidden stories. See you there.